Brighton and Hove City Council. I would like to inform those present that this meeting is being webcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. I would ask that members stand when speaking in accordance with the council procedure rules, as this makes it easier to be heard. Can I remind everyone that the use of mobile communication devices in the chamber is allowed as long as they remain in silent mode. Anyone present is able to film, photograph, or take sound recordings of today's meetings, provided it is done in a way that does not interfere with the proceedings and that flash photography is not used. I would also like to request that all councillors are mindful of each other so that we have a respectful meeting today. Personal comments should not be made. Any points of order are confined to an alleged breach of a specific legal rule or council procedure rule. I would also remind all members that all contributions to the meeting should be directed to me as chair of the meeting. On this theme, and before we begin, I will hand over to the Chief Executive, who wishes to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councillors. In a world of culture wars and increased political polarisation, I want to remind you of your commonality. In a world where it's more and more common for disinformation to be accepted and facts and evidence manipulated, I want to remind you of your responsibility to speak to the evidence and the data. You are each here to represent the residents of Brighton and Hove, to represent this council and uphold our constitution. I am here as your Chief Executive to serve you all and ensure together we uphold the highest standards of public life. Together we are the council. With our roles comes the requirement to act within the Nolan principles of public life. Honesty, integrity, objectivity, accountability, leadership, selflessness, and openness. As you engage in debate and discussion this evening on local government reform, as you represent the voices of our residents, I ask that each of you seek to exemplify the Nolan principles of public life. By doing so, you create a council our residents can trust and we can all be proud of. Remember, kindness is like a boomerang. It always comes back. Thank you.
Are there any declarations of interest by councillors in any matter appearing on the agenda? Okay, so we move to item number 4, local government reorganisation. Item 4 concerns the report on local government reorganisation. I call on Councillor Hewitt to introduce the report as set out in the agenda. Councillor Hewitt has 5 minutes.
Madam Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to debate this evening on the submission to government on local government reorganisation, which will be decided on Cabinet tomorrow afternoon. There has already been good engagement with councillors from all parties at the 3 place overview and scrutiny committees, which Councillor Tanky and I attended over the last few months. Those meetings have not only generated genuine scrutiny at different stages of our local government reorganisation journey, but have provided constructive oversight, utilising the knowledge of councillors and elected members. The purpose of this evening's specially convened council meeting is an opportunity for further debate on the recommendations which are going to Cabinet. I hope that the tone of the contributions during tonight's meeting continue in the same vein as the scrutiny meetings, so this meeting has a constructive purpose and doesn't resort to party political point scoring. We understand the magnitude of this exercise. It is bigger than the current cohort of councillors and is the largest reorganisation of local government in our region since the 1970s. We have undertaken extensive consultation to formulate our plans. Whilst we were prohibited from proactively engaging outside of our city boundaries, we allowed for the Your Voice platform to accept representations from residents outside of the city, and we hosted our drop-in sessions and public meetings to the east in Saltdean, Rottingdean and Woodendene. From our engagement, it is evident how important communities and their sense of place and identity is to residents. This is why our proposed 5 unitary authority model reflects this. It will bring residents closer to their decision-making bodies, and each unitary authority will be able to provide their 700 services on a sensible footprint, serving a population of between 300 and 400,000 residents. The government have set out 6 criteria which they will benchmark for the submissions they receive against. Our proposed submission will meet the standards, which is being a single tier of local government. It is right sized to achieve efficiencies, improve capacity and withstand financial shocks. It will deliver high quality and sustainable public services. It will meet the local needs and informed by local views. It will support the devolution arrangements and will enable stronger community engagement and neighbourhood empowerment. We have designed our proposed submission with all the areas of Sussex in mind, ensuring that this model has an all Sussex approach. Government will be running a further public statutory consultation on the shortlisted submissions, and we will encourage residents to engage with this. Finally, I will touch on the proposed unitary authority, which Brighton and Hove will be part of. We are proposing a modest expansion with areas to the east, East Saltdean, Telscombe and Peacehaven wards and Falmouth Parish. This will create a coherent and continuing coastal city of around 301,000 residents, large enough to deliver resilient services and small enough to preserve local identity. Our proposal will meet the government's tests and will create sustainable new unitary authorities which will be recognisable to the communities that they will serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. We will now move to the general debate. All speakers will have exactly 3 minutes each. Can I ask Councillor McClay, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today we are asked to endorse the recommendations set out in the Cabinet report, a 5 unitary proposal as part of the local government reorganisation. But it's difficult to support this proposal in good conscience when our organisation has failed to win hearts and minds, particularly through the lack of meaningful engagement with neighbouring councils. The process so far has made it difficult for leaders of different councils to reach consensus on what lines should be drawn and where. The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, in its guidance, which Labour members shared during scrutiny meeting in June, made it clear that effective collaboration across the invitation area would be crucial. We were encouraged to build strong relationships, agree ways of working and support a robust shared evidence base. And this is not followed. Instead of engaging constructively with neighbouring councils, there are reports suggesting that Brighton and Hove have worked in isolation. A councillor in West Sussex County Council was told by their council officers that Brighton and Hove worked alone with no discussion or consultation, didn't share data and didn't involve West Sussex at all. In contrast, the options considered by different councils for West Sussex, 1 and 2 unitary options, were worked on together with full collaboration. The way councils voted were different, but all options were discussed openly and deemed viable. Whether a 5 unitary option is viable is not my key concern currently. The point is that you can't go about carving up the county next door to you without talking to them first. This is common decency. The lack of communication is not only discourteous, but shows contempt for the communities affected. Now we have neighbouring councils unhappy with the lack of inclusion, and trust has been eroded. Yes, this is a complex political landscape. Everyone has their own agendas, and there will inevitably be winners and losers. But these concerns are not just political. They reflect genuine community sentiment. The Ignite report makes it clear. It highlights widespread mistrust in Brighton and Hove City Council, with residents fearing increased housing development, loss of green space, economic fallout, infrastructure strain, and the erosion of local identity. And the consultation process was criticised as rushed and biased, as sentiment echoed in other consultations over the past year. We really do need to address that. The report recommends rebuilding trust through better engagement, redesigning a more inclusive, participatory process, and a two-way dialogue. It calls for respect of local identity and elected representatives and a willingness to collaborate. And given that the Ignite Consulting was commissioned to review survey responses, will you commit to genuine collaboration and show greater respect to district and county council members?
Thank you, Councillor McLeay. Can I call on Councillor McNair, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've heard lots of warm words about the benefits of local government reorganisation, but the truth is no one wants it. In fact, if you listen carefully, you can probably hear the screams from residents when they realise they might become part of Brighton. Hove is still screaming. Only 27% of respondents support merging with East Saltdean, Telsome Cliffs and Peacehaven. Only 27% of respondents from East Saltdean, Telsome, support merging with East Saltdean, etc. Councillor Sankey writes that too often our current boundaries cut through communities, decisions feel distant and responsibilities unclear. This is not just about lines on a map. It means services that are easy to reach and joined up. But this has become about lines on a map. Counties are reduced to being called A, B, C, D, and E. Communities are going to be changed against their wishes. Services in Brighton and Hove are not easy to reach or joined up, and residents in Sussex don't want to join our city. The council has chosen, in their words, the most expensive and complex expansionist plans. £200 million of taxpayers' money will be spent on reorganising Brighton and Hove. At a time when our council is struggling financially and still struggling to collect the bins, fix potholes and house people. But the Labour government's priority, and this council which chose to go fast track, is reshuffling the decks. They're not thinking of ordinary people. The report states that existing authorities across Sussex will be unable to fund the costs of reorganisation from existing reserves and budgets. Where is this money going to come from when economic growth is so low? And we're told it won't solve challenges with children's social care, temporary accommodation and SEND. Local government reorganisation is setting neighbour against neighbour, community against community, is destroying borough councils, full of councillors who know their areas like the back of their hand. Real localism. Unitaries will create a system of distant and aloof government. The reorganisation of government will take years to bed in and will lead to mistakes and poorer service for residents. We've heard how transformative it could be, but I'm sceptical because the one thing this Labour government can't do is deliver. House building, despite Angela Rayner's deep pockets, is substantially down. The economy is flatlining. The number of teachers are down. The only thing that's up, along with inflation and unemployment and government borrowing, is the number of government resignations. The Labour government is introducing change no one wanted and change no one believes they can deliver.
Thank you, Councillor McNair. I call upon Councillor Taylor.
Madam Mayor, we could spend tonight talking about process, about finances and population size, all of which are important, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about people and about community and ducks, but more on that later. I was raised in the area that we call the Deans, and to give a sense of that, I grew up in Ovingdean, but I went to primary school in Rottingdean. My first best friend at primary school lived in Peacehaven, and my best friend at secondary school lived in Saltdean, and later I met my future wife as a teenager in Woodingdean. Ovingdean is a wonderful place to live. It's peaceful and connected to nature. But it wasn't always the most exciting place to grow up as a kid. We had no playground, and indeed there wasn't a playground over the hill in Rottingdean. And there certainly wasn't anywhere to get takeaway food. So the great treat that we would lobby my mum for was a trip to Peacehaven, to Blockbuster Video, and if we were really lucky, for dinner at Big Mouth's Burger Bar. And because we had no play area in Ovingdean, we would often visit the play areas in Telscombe and Peacehaven, Banningsvale, Chatsworth Park, and the Dell. Now, why am I mentioning all of this, Madam Mayor? Because for many people living in the coastal villages to the east of Brighton, the Deans, Telscombe, and Peacehaven, these areas already operate as one community. I'll concede my ignorance. When I stood as a councillor in 2023, I had no idea that part of Saltdean was outside of the boundary of Brighton and Hove, a division that still makes no sense to me. I accept that there is scepticism and in some cases outright opposition to these proposals, but I want to offer a positive vision of what we could create here, a chance to align our communities and better serve residents. Brighton and Hove is much more than just the city centre. It's made up of unique communities, from Portslade to Patcham, from Bevendene to Woodingdean, many of which are villages that exist on their own right and within a city council boundary. So to the residents of East Saltdean, Telscombe and Peacehaven, if the government does take up this proposal, I'm personally really excited about what we could achieve together. And I would be proud to be part of a local authority that included these wonderful areas and that I feel so connected to. Finally, I haven't said anything about Falmer Village, Madam Mayor, and that's where the ducks come in. As a child on a visit to Falmer Pond, I was actually bitten by a particularly devious duck while attempting to feed it some bread. I still genuinely have a small scar on my left thumb to this day, which I can show councillors. But I don't hold grudges, Madam Mayor, and I'm willing to forgive the people of Falmer and the ducks, and would welcome the chance to work with them on a newly formed local authority. Madam Mayor, I support these proposals and hope that the government will continue.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I call upon Councillor Earthy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, we would like to thank the officers and councillors Sankey and Hewitt for all the hard work in preparing a very sensible and workable proposal. However, we had some concerns and questions. First, cost. Monday's scrutiny committee heard that the local government reorganisation could cost us about £8 million. Rumours are circulating about even bigger numbers and questioning if the entire national exercise has been properly costed and will save council taxpayers any money at all. All of us in this chamber and residents current and future need to know how this figure was reached and where the money will come from. We seek strong assurances this £8 million sum or whatever will not come out of our budget for frontline services. Secondly, we question the incorporation of Telscombe and Peacehaven. We are concerned that these areas will absorb considerable amounts of council resources while possibly offering little in return. Currently, the area doesn't even offer its residents a major supermarket. So therefore, will its incorporation be to the detriment of our overall financial position? Third, regarding public communication engagement, we were very disappointed with the public response when the Sankey Hewitt Roadshow hit our area. In one particularly challenging meeting, Councillor Hewitt was booed and hissed as if he was a pantomime villain. So while I'm tempted to yell, "He's behind you," this experience met with a much more serious observation. So in our area at least, no young people have been visibly engaged with the process. The only young person at the aforementioned meeting was so angered by the treatment of Councillor Hewitt that they wanted to leave immediately. That evening, our local democracy hardly covered itself in the glory in the eyes of youth. This young person also asked me to tell you that many younger Peacehaven people already feel part of Brighton and Hove, seeing it as a major social hub for employment, health, culture, education, and entertainment. Thus, we may be pushing at an open door. So ahead of the next consultation, we ask for vastly improved engagement with the young people of the affected areas. Of course, we recognise that sadly, it's the younger people who don't engage with council surveys, that they're too busy getting on with their lives. But we must persevere, as it's they who will be living with the consequences of the decisions we make under local government reorganisation for decades to come. Fourthly, what safeguards do we have to put in place to protect community-wide projects if two unitary authorities diverge politically? We have a case in Saltdean where we're launching a community energy scheme and it's not practical to split it into east and west. So if we stay where we are with the boundary, what happens if the eastern region goes over to another party who's hostile to community energy? Right. In conclusion, ahead of the next consultation, we urge the Council to prioritise two important pieces of work. One, make it clear to Eastern Area residents about the benefits of becoming part of us rather than part of the much larger unitary authority proposed by East Sussex. Two, ensure that the Council is very clear what improvements and investments are needed in these areas, and which of these will be covered by the new mayor. Then develop a robust plan well in advance of the changes being implemented.
Thank you, Councillor Urthy. I call upon Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support the move to unitary authorities. I've never understood the 2-tier model of local government, and 5 seems about the right number for Sussex. Obviously agree that the cost of reorganisation should mostly be borne by central government, but personally I would have rather seen Brighton merging with Southwark and Shoreham to the west, and East Saltdean to the east, and Falmer to the north, but not the aggressive duck. In terms of consultation with residents outside of the city, it seems clear that the majority of residents don't want to join us, particularly Telscombe and Peacehaven. The total cost of implementation of the 5 authority model is between 167 million and 197 million. This is obviously an enormous amount of money, and we must receive an absolute assurance that this will be mostly met by central government. Section 563 on page 15 asks if the infrastructure could cope with further demand in terms of devolution, but I don't really understand how these proposals would create further demand in themselves. Shadow members elected in May 2027, what would that actually mean in practice? How will we reach consensus with our colleagues in other councils, or will consensus be imposed on us by central government? And how much cross-council discussion has actually taken place or will take place in the near future? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson. I call upon Councillor Sykes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to recognise the massive amount of work that's got into this and the evident passion that Councillors Hewitt and Sankey have put into this, although I think that's misplaced, unfortunately. I'm going to take a sort of slightly higher level view, and I looked at some LGA papers and evidence from local government over the past 50 years. So my pushback is less about the specific proposals. I do want to reflect on the driver for this. It's a manifesto promise on devolution and a desire to reset local government for the long-term sustainability, effectiveness and efficiency have been promised. But local government reorganisation wasn't in the manifesto. It wasn't a pre-election pledge. So this is on the back of devolution, and it's just an idea from central government which is being foisted on us. And over the past 50 years, the trend countrywide has been for a decreased number of council and decreased number of elected representatives. And we have the largest average council size in Europe by far. And these proposals continue that trend. We're going from 15 authorities, more or less, to 6. So the number of authorities in the whole of Sussex will decrease. And the argument is made for efficiency and effectiveness in the use of public funds. And it's also made that the new authorities will be closer to residents and more responsive to their needs. Historical evidence shows the opposite is true when you make councils bigger in this way. And the preference for unitaries is based on a presumption that large government is more efficient. The literature is contradictory and inconsistent with that. So the literature shows that efficiency and effectiveness is not provided by larger authorities of the nature that we're seeing here. On the other side, local democracy size does matter, and the literature is consistent in findings that increases in population or geographical scale of local government have a deleterious effect on democratic criteria, such as electoral turnout, public trust in councillors, public trust in officers, levels of engagement, and contact between citizens and councillors. So where is the driver? And so the benefits are actually for national government. And Whitehall has long been aware the extent to which its administrative duties would be simplified if, instead of having to deal with messy 2-tier systems, it only had to deal with one authority in various areas or a statutory authority, and a small number of very large unitary authorities is easier for national government to implement their own policies. So I think there's a poor evidence base for these proposals per se, and if you look at the historical evidence, and there's evidence that local democracy will be undermined. And this change is being foisted on us, Madam Mayor, and pushed far too quickly by this Labour administration at great cost to us.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. I now call upon Councillor Meadows.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I recently attended a hustings in our ward where residents asked a lot of questions as they were concerned about what it will mean for local charities working in the area, but also what it will mean for them. There has been so much discussion with residents east of the city, but very little discussion with residents in the north or west of the city, and they do want to feel that their opinion matters as well. Which brings me on to the poor consultation for many residents. In our ward, residents have said they have no idea it was up for consultation. And I have to agree, because we as ward councillors are never informed about relevant consultations. All we receive are the news accounts which we put out. And residents said if they did go online to put their view to a consultation, the way it was worded, it was already a done deal. The decision was already made. There has been so much ideology spoken about the opportunities that may happen. But as someone who has been through something similar when Brighton and Hove were joined to become a unitary, I'm not sure that this will be the nirvana or paradise that Labour will tell you about. The reason for that is because those in Portslade or Patcham may not experience the same benefits as those in the city centre or the east of the city. Those opportunities rarely visit the outer areas of our city. At the end of the day, our residents will find it is not always a good thing, and the costs incurred through this process will be down to the residents. They will be counting the cost. And just as an aside, I have trouble reading things online, but the council can't even sort out a printer for me to use, let alone working out and sorting out adult social care, housing, and how to extend education. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meadows. I now call upon Councillor Alexander.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and fellow councillors. I want to speak today on why I believe it's a very good idea for Falmouth Parish to merge with Brighton and Hove. As a ward councillor covering Coldine, Stammer and North Moulscombe, it took me a while to work out what was part of my ward and what wasn't. Falmouth Station is, Falmouth Village isn't. Most of Sussex Uni is, but some isn't. The Amex Stadium is, but the car park is not. There are stretches of road that come under East Sussex County Council, and yet the bus stops come under us. Falmouth Village Pond sits within East Sussex and yet is owned by us. It was our administration who recently won a £400,000 grant from the National Lottery to do the much needed and greatly welcome restoration and enhancement of that pond. Farmland adjoining the village forms part of our city downland estate and is worked by our tenant farmers, as this land is owned by us. We even own council houses in the village. It's all rather disjointed, but we now have the opportunity to open our arms and welcome Falmouth Village into the warm and inclusive heart that is Brighton and Hove. In the long term, the inclusion into our city will greatly benefit the villagers. For example, if Falmouth Village had a yearning for a new kids' wing, it's surely far easier for our Cabinet Member for Parks, who at the furthest would have to travel from Portslade to pop to Falmouth for a visit, than it would be for a Cabinet Member to pop to Falmouth from Rye or East Grinstead, for instance. Another example would be planning applications. Our councillors who sit on planning can visit and better understand the impacts of a planning application concerning Falmouth Village than councillors whose wards will be miles away. We believe locality matters. Falmouth Parish Council has been engaging with us, and I hear that their united public position is one of neutrality, I can't say that word, which is surely a good sign that although they do not want to fall out with East Sussex, in case a change does not happen, they acknowledge the opportunities that recalibrating local government arrangements can bring for their community. Falmouth Village feels like it's already part of Brighton already. According to Google, walking from Falmer Village Hall to St George's Community Hall in Moulscombe will take 37 minutes to walk, but Falmer Village Hall to Kingston Village Hall will take 1 hour and 18 minutes to walk. It's easy to see how Falmer Village is a better fit to Brighton and Hove than to the wider East Sussex area. Plus, I would get a second pub in my ward.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. I call upon Councillor Beguine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I recognise that the transfer of power out of Whitehall and into the hands of local government is a good thing. This is where power should be. Bringing decision-making closer to communities makes operational and democratic sense. However, I also believe that any effective transfer of power to a smaller number of unitaries relies on councils, communities, residents, and public services working well together. There's been no mention of public services at all and how they will operate together this afternoon. The principle of public service boundaries and geographies aligning makes sense, but for it to do so, health, such as the clustering of the ICBs under the NHS 10-year plan, transport, skills, economic development, water, other utilities and planning must align with political boundaries. The Brighton and Hove approach to LGR has been a piecemeal process, leaving some areas in East Sussex facing a long period of misalignment with respect to services. This approach also sidelined our stronger links to West Sussex neighbourhoods. It's clear from the rushed consultation process that a large proportion of the public perceives LGR as an unnecessary distraction from delivering housing and securing economic growth. I don't blame them. In times of economic uncertainty, poor governance and austerity, the idea of spending money on reorganisation seems imprudent to many, particularly when other areas of public services are underfunded. The logistical challenges of transitioning to a new system, such as the rushed merging of departments or realigning responsibilities or sorting out the funding pots, could prove to be the downfall of LGR. Our residents are focused on housing, jobs, education, and public health. Local government reorganisation appears to be an unnecessary distraction. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beguine. Call upon Councillor Shanks.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's a shame that I didn't talk to Councillor Sykes before, because we seem to have done the same research, which showed that this was never in Labour's manifesto, locally or nationally, although devolution was. At a time of local government, this is a crisis in local government, in my opinion, and I worked for it from the 70s, and I've been in it quite a bit now. There is not enough money. We're not even allowed by central government to set our own taxes. There isn't enough money for adult social care. Adult social care needs reform. It's been agreed for a long time. It needs reform. And we're in a housing crisis, as we all know. We need much more affordable housing. If the government really had 197 million spent, wouldn't we just build much more social housing and sort that problem out? This is a problem that isn't needing solving at the moment in terms of reorganisation. This is something, as Councillor Sykes said, that's been imposed by national government. It was just brought in February in a paper, and nobody, it seems, well, very few people have actually said, yes, this is what we want. Give us local government reorganisation now. We haven't been marching on that. We're just moving things around. And I think in terms of what this council has done, we haven't, I don't feel it could have spent more time. It rushed into doing this. We haven't seen enough local involvement. We could have some sort of bigger consultation, referendum, etc. And I think we need to think again about this. I'm not prepared to put my vote to something that I think has been ill thought out nationally, ill thought out locally, doesn't give us any benefits. The idea that there's £50 million somewhere is, well, there's no proof of that. We would need much scrutiny. We were just told we'd had scrutiny. No, we haven't. We haven't seen the figures that have been worked on either by the consultants or by the administration to see whether that is, something that works. So I think, from this group, we're not prepared to vote for it. We would, we've got various concerns about where the boundaries have been drawn, but basically no one wants it and no one voted for this, and we're not going to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shanks. I call upon Councillor Theobald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief, actually. This does seem to be a thorough report. I was interested to see page 106, the distrust and criticism of Brighton Hove Council. Criticism of Brighton Hove Council's service management, bins, housing, public transport, social care, and fears that the expansion is driven by financial or political motives. Perception of land grabbing is another thing. According to the Argus, the public meeting in Peacehaven went very badly, so the leader and the officers seemed to present badly. We would be still the smallest unitary authority if it was unitary for the 5 proposal. This would be the most expensive model to deliver, estimated between 109 and 197 million. So although I'm glad in some ways that Falmouth is proposed because we've got the University of Sussex and we've got the Amex Stadium, I think perhaps another option would have been better and less expensive. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Theobald. I call upon Councillor Zuderman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Colleague, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. As Brighton and Hove Small Business Ambassador, I rise about the government's new devolution framework and the opportunity it gives us to shape the future of our city and the whole of Sussex. A viable local government reorganization proposal is essential to make this work. Devolution is about bringing decision closer to people they affect. We must make sure the voice of small business and independent business, which makes up 95% of Brighton and Hove economy, are heard just as clearly those of big corporations. Across Sussex, having 5 authorities will ensure every community's voice to be represented. Brighton and Hove and Sussex are more tourist destinations. We are hub for creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship. Our coffees, studios, market traders, digital startups, creative industries do more than employ people. They make our region vibrant and proudly different. We are also home to 2 world-class which bring research, talent, and global connection that helps business innovate and compete. To have business thrive under devolution, we need a plan built on 5 pillars. Number 1, funding, fairness, and accountability. Grant must be Number 2, safer business and resilience. Working with police, fire, community resilience service to protect business from crime and antisocial behavior. Number 3, education, training, and support. Mentoring, upskill, and practical advice to business can grow sustainably. Our universities are key partners. Number 4, marketing and promotion. Championing independent businesses through campaign, discount card, and initiative to encourage local spending. Number 5, protecting our identity, ensuring every policy under devolution safeguards what makes Brighton and Hove special. Our independent spirit, diversity, and creative energy. This is not just about economic decision, it is about who we are, creative, inclusive, and ambitious. 5 authorities will ensure urban, coastal, and rural communities all have seat at the table and avoiding domination by any single area. Finally, let's use this proposal to unlock devolution and make Brighton and Hove and Sussex Place where every business can start, stay safe, grow, and show.
Thank you, Councillor Zuderman. Thank you. Thank you. I call upon Councillor De Oliveira.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm familiar with that ton of anecdotes, from pubs to ducks. But my issue is twofold. One, the proposals dress up in the language neighborhood empowerment. but in practice, it centralizes power into fewer and larger units. Even with the 5-council model, authorities governing from 300 to 400 residents will inevitably weaken the links between residents and their representatives. The report admits there is already skepticism on, and that the residents fear lose their identity. Yet, our listening council presses ahead anyway. There is a democratic deficit. The consultation was partial, self-selecting, heavily shaped by government's timetable, not by residents' demands. It risks creating councils that are more remote, technocratic, while communities are left with talking parishes and standards that have no real teeth. 2, the report promised savings of 50 to 60 million pounds per 10 year. Yet, openly admits the reorganization costs would hit between 109 to 197 million upfront. It also considers the real financial crisis rooted in austerity and chronic underfunding of social care, housing, and SEND, none of which the reorganization can fix. Local services are collapsing under imposed austerity and cuts by Westminster. But instead of fighting for fair funding, councils are being directed into costly measures under the illusion of efficiency. We all know that means. This will divert scarce resources and political energy away from where it's most needed, upfront services, and protect the most vulnerable. Even the so-called evolution elements hollow, seeded by government's obsession with direct elected mayors, another layer of centralized power. Real devolution would mean giving councils the power to raise progressive taxes, invest in housing, plan services without needing to ask Westminster for scraps. Instead, what's being offered here is a reshuffle services to please Whitehall, not the people of Sussex or Brighton Hove.
Thank you, Councillor Ojibola. I call upon Councillor Pickett.
Thank you, Chair. Having listened to the debate so far, it is clear there are still so many unanswered questions on the reality of what LGR will bring to Sussex at this moment in time. However, that's not to say that restructuring is not needed. It's been a long time since any has occurred, and there is a lot going for the idea of streamlining services to make savings, or the possibility of creating a county-wide transport system that would benefit the area economically, environmentally, and socially. Margaret Thatcher's centralisation of power in the 1980s, making local government more of an administration of central government, has in many ways contributed to the current breakdown of local authority capabilities. Aimed at breaking down political opposition, local government was stripped of statutory powers, particularly those related to financial decision-making, the result of which was electable power lost out to the private sector, with the result that nationally our urban areas are no longer economically flourishing, community-led hubs that people once enjoyed living in. The destruction of the high street is a prime example of what centralised economic power has taken away from us. Essentially then, the transfer of these powers back to local government would indeed be an exciting and positive process that in the long run could reinvigorate communities. However, that said, the process currently being undertaken to achieve this does not quite equate in my mind with how this should be done. Why was Sussex signed up for the Priority Devolution Programme, which has impacted and pushed forward the need for the county to implement LGR at a faster pace? LGR could still have happened with more inclusive representation and democratic engagement if the county hadn't been forced to do this at an unnecessarily rushed speed. The idea that if we hadn't chosen to be prioritised, would have meant losing out on funding or choice isn't logical. Furthermore, both East and West Sussex have complained that Brighton and Hove have not fully consulted with them over their proposals, whilst they believe they've been transparent with Brighton and Hove on their options. This lack of proper engagement is worrying and in many ways insulting, not only for those working on this, but for residents trying to make sense of the implications of what is going to happen. Looking at the current proposals, I would agree that splitting Sussex into 5 equally comparable smaller unitaries does seem a better option. However, the result of this LGR is to impact Sussex for a long time, and it is essential that the right decision is made that yields the best outcome for all, one that all parties willingly agree upon. This process has been chaotic, undemocratic and rushed, and I am concerned that proceeding on from here will only cause further resentment and disengagement from those already angry at those seemingly making all the decisions without clear evidence to back their assumptions. And for that reason, therefore, I will be voting against these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pickett. I call upon Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I firstly say Shana Tova, which basically means have a good new year or Happy New Year from the Jewish community. Only 2 days ago at the Place Committee, this topic was scrutinised for more than 2 hours. I believe it would have been helpful to the councillors in the room today to have received the minutes before tonight's meeting. I hope they will be issued imminently. The annual budget is circa 3.56 billion, covering East Sussex County Council, Brighton Hove Council, West Sussex County Council. And the proposed changes will save, we have been advised, some 52 million per annum. This is minuscule in the scheme of things, looking to save less than 1% of the budget. But the savings are not going to be as much as this, given the implementation costs of up to £200 million. Restructuring involves significant upfront costs, redundancies, IT system integration and rebranding. Studies suggest transition costs can take 5 to 10 years to recoup through savings. East Sussex 5 districts and county council employs thousands. Merging would require harmonising contracts, pensions and systems, straining already pressured budgets. Merging services like social care or planning can lead to temporary inefficiencies, staff turnover or loss of specialised local knowledge. East Sussex County Council's social care budget is 75% of its spending. It is complex, servicing an ageing population, of which over 25% is over 65. A unitary authority transition could disrupt care continuity, especially in rural areas. Whilst I do see merit in Brighton and Hove unitary extending east, given that only parts of Saltdean are within Brighton Hove walls, with the extra bureaucracy costs, I don't necessarily see 5 unitary authorities within Sussex to be the way forward. Perhaps collaboration, sharing services between districts and counties could balance efficiencies and local representation.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. I call upon Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Elected members and residents, tonight is about whether we shape the future of Sussex or have it shaped for us. The pressures on local government are real. Residents feel them every day. We can keep patching up the old machine, or we can build something that lasts for the next generation. This is not only about Brighton and Hove, and I'm proud that we have stepped up to the challenge set by our Labour government, putting forward a Sussex-wide option that will help unlock devolution and bring power back to communities. I'm going to address some misinformation from the Greens that we've not been collaborative. I asked Sussex leaders for a regular meeting on local government reorganisation right at the outset of this process. And for those that wanted that conversation with us, we have had regular and very constructive meetings. Not everybody has wanted that conversation, and I don't shy away from that. But we've always been transparent about what we wanted to do, and we've always asked for dialogue, even when we haven't agreed. Conversations are still happening, and they will continue. Government will decide which proposals they want to test side by side, and I believe it's in everyone's interest to keep talking, even where there is disagreement. I'm pleased to announce today that Government has also just confirmed that devolution will bring an additional £1.14 billion of funding to Brighton and Hove and Sussex over 30 years. That's £38 million a year of seed funding that we wouldn't receive if we weren't in the devolution priority programme. And it's important to be clear that this wouldn't come without local government reorganisation. It will be on top of the £52.4 million that we project these proposals will save local government across Sussex every single year. Our proposal is for 5 balanced unitary authorities designed around real lives, each one just a bit bigger than we are now, but not too distant and remote in a way that I fear the One East Sussex proposal could be. We've proposed councils that reflect daily journeys to work, schools, colleges, and leisure activities and services that people rely on. Big enough to stand firmer under financial pressure, but close enough to be resident-led and ensure that people's voices are heard. And balanced enough, crucially, to give a future Sussex mayor a team of equal partners to be able to deliver on transport, jobs, and growth. To the residents of Falmer Village, East Saltdean, Peacehaven, and Telscombe Cliffs, I fully respect and appreciate and celebrate your uniqueness as places and communities. As someone who was born and bred in the city, I know your place as well. And as Councillor Taylor has said, the truth is that we are all interlinked, different but connected. Hand on heart, I think you've been underserved by existing relationships. It's not right that there's no supermarket in Peacehaven or that you have so many unadopted roads. We already offer our residents more.
Thank you, Councillor Sankey. I'd like to call upon Councillor Hill, please.
Madam Mayor, it's important to realise that no district, borough or county council in Sussex has indicated their support for these specific proposed boundaries outside of the one in which we're here today. To be clear, outside of the Brighton Hove Labour group of councillors, no other administration in Sussex has backed this. Councillor Sankey said at scrutiny on Monday that, quote, there is a consensus forming across West Sussex for a 2 unitary option, implying to me a consensus for this council's proposal to split West Sussex. There's 2 issues with this statement. Firstly, West Sussex County Council has decided that they want 1 huge unitary, which, to be honest, is far too big in my view. But secondly, West Sussex districts and boroughs have come out in favour of option B2 in the West Sussex County Council local government review document. The B2 document splits West Sussex in 2, but with a key difference. Our Labour Council administration wants Chichester district linked with Crawley, Mid Sussex and Horsham, whereas the districts and boroughs in West Sussex area want Chichester with Arran, Ada and Worthing. Option B2 isn't even considered in the document proposals that you are looking to submit, and I would ask you to reconsider and engage with the merits of this proposal. It shouldn't be up to us to decide whether Chichester is connected by a council to Crawley or instead to Worthing, so please engage with this. East Sussex County Council and its district have mostly opted for the One East Sussex unitary approach. Wealdon has split from this, but it's been clear in its opposition to this proposal considered today. This paper proposes also Unitary B, which is a coastal unitary with a projected 9.1 deficit from the outset as it brings together areas with high level of deprivation. The East Sussex-wide unitary also still has a deficit, but it is projected to be proportionally far less at 3%. So I do accept the place-based arguments for smaller unitaries, but this specific coastal unitary is at great risk of being doomed to special financial measures, meaning far higher council tax and system failure even after the fair funding review and additional money from devolution that's projected. The 52.4 million annual projected benefits includes 26 million projected in annual savings based on what is called agile unitaries. The evidence for this is not shown in the document. Please show us the workings for the projected benefits for this in more detail, because it is not available. I feel as well that the fact that we have had no election in May for the rest of the county councils has also deeply harmed this process, as a recent election would have allowed those county councils that had been recently elected to have the proper views of residents. But instead we have dead administrations of Tories who are clearly not part of a party that has any more future to it, making decisions. And so that was a key failure as part of this process that needs to be acknowledged. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. I call upon Councillor Hogan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight we're meeting to discuss the proposal around local reorganisation. Speaking to my local residents, some tell me it shouldn't make too much difference in their everyday life if this is voted through. but they do say this is taking attention away from more important matters such as housing, education, healthcare as just a few examples that matter greatly to them. On the face of it, we can see there have been many benefits mentioned. We've been promised the potential to take more control of services. There are genuine concerns that some of these services may be siphoned away from those who need it to other parts of the city. Some of the more fiscally aware residents have rightly voiced concerns around the extortionate cost of this reorganisation and how we will foot the bill at a time when money is tight and due to get tighter. I am therefore concerned about the huge cost, the lack of good consultation in certain parts of the city, and the likely loss of democracy across our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hove. And Councillor Hewitt, do you wish to respond to the debate? You have 3 minutes.
Madam Mayor, and thank you to everyone tonight for the contributions for the debate we've had. There's a lot of contributions, so apologies if I'm not able to cover them all. So there's obviously a lot of one-off transitional costs, but with ongoing recurring efficiencies, long-term benefits could unlock 52.4 million in annual net benefits from the financial and modelling undertaken. I disagree that unitary authorities will be distanced from residents. We must all be on the same page then that we feel that a 5 unitary model is better than proposals for a 3 or 4 larger authorities. And of course, parish and town councils will be retained and greatly benefited from this. Discussions about why we haven't proposed any models with merging West. Government invited Brighton and Hove to work with East Sussex councils to develop a proposal for LGR, and their clear expectations would be that it would be developed in that area. Our early analysis, which concurred for West Sussex's, would be that coherent new unitary authorities would be created with Brighton and Hove merging to the east. Thank you to Councillor Urphy for helping me to relive the meeting in Peacehaven, and of course, thank you for yourself and Councillor Fishley for attending drop-ins and the meetings in West Saltdean and Rottingdean. It's not correct to say that we are doing this as we're on the devolution fast track programme. Surrey aren't on that programme, and they're also undertaking local government reorganisation. We have, from our conversations which we do have with our neighbouring authorities, we do have support for our proposals from elected representatives from areas including Worthing, Ada, Hastings.
Quiet, please. Thank you. Carry on, Councillor Hewitt.
Worthing, Ada, Hastings, Rother and Wilden. We also have support from MPs across the region, including, as I believe, the one from Brighton Pavilion. Sean Bowie, if you didn't know. This is far from the end of the process. We've got further statutory consultation coming as part of this. Colleagues, this is our moment to lead, to set out a balanced Sussex-wide model that is credible, strategic and ready for the future. One which represents communities. This is the responsible choice, and I therefore move the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hewitt. I will now put the recommendations as set out in the cover report to the vote. The recommendation is that Council endorse the recommendations set out in the Cabinet report attached. I understand members have a preference for a recorded vote. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the motion to have a recorded vote, please? Have a mover, seconder? Seconder. Thank you very much. A request for a recorded vote has been moved and seconded. Does Council agree a recorded vote should take place? Thank you. The request for the recorded vote has been carried. I will now ask Anthony to undertake the recorded vote and confirm the results.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Alexander. Councillor Alexander.
Councillor Allen. For. Councillor Zaduzaman. Councillor Atkinson. Councillor Begin. Councillor Bagoff. Councillor Cattell. For. Councillor Sherlock. For. Councillor Daniel. Councillor Davies. Councillor De Oliveira.
Yes.
Councillor Murphy. Councillor Evans, absent. Councillor Fishley. Councillor Fowler. Councillor Galvin. Councillor Gage. Councillor Goddard. Councillor Goldsmith, absent. Councillor Gilmont. Councillor Helliwell. Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Hill.
Against.
Councillor Hogan. Councillor Lademaker.
Yes.
Councillor Loughran. Councillor Lyons. Councillor Mackey.
For.
Councillor McGregor. Councillor McLean. Councillor McNair. Councillor Meadows. Councillor Miller. Councillor Meaton. Councillor Nan. Councillor O'Quinn. Absent. Councillor Parrott.
For.
Councillor Pickett. Councillor Robbins.
For.
Councillor Robinson.
For.
Councillor Okins. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Shanks. Councillor Sherd.
For.
Councillor Simon. Councillor Sykes. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Theobald. Councillor Thompson. Councillor West, absent. Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
Councillor Williams. Councillor Windnut. Councillor Grimshaw.
For.
I can confirm, Madam Mayor, you have 35 for, 8 against, and 5 abstentions. Motion passed.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you very much. That concludes the business for this evening, and thank you very much for your exemplary behaviour. And I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.